recorded its first case of coronavirus as health authorities in Côte d'Ivoire say a student who traveled from China was coughing and sneezing on arrival at the country's international airport in Abidjan on Saturday. Records from British Broadcasting Corporation revealed that death toll has climbed to 106 persons, with 4,524 confirmed cases, 5,794 suspected cases, 461 in critical condition, while 51 persons have recovered and discharged from hospital. The outbreak of the virus has spread to other countries, including the United States, Australia, Thailand, and South Korea, among others. This therefore necessitates proactive action and measures across international airports in the country to avoid its spread to Nigeria, just like the case of Ebola in 2014. What is coronavirus? How is it contracted? And what measures need to be put in place to stop its entry into Nigeria? This is our focus on Panorama today from the Lagos Network Center. I'm Hingino John Adams. Join us after the break. Thanks for being there. We begin with the National Assembly. Members of the Ninth Assembly have reconvened after a 5-week-long break, and as they resume their legislative responsibility, the expectation of Nigerians are high based on some key bills, such as the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, the Petroleum Industry Bill, and Police Reform Bill, just to mention a few, which the Senate President gave assurance of speedy deliberation. Let's join Lami Ali, who is at the National Assembly Complex, for an update. Assembly Complex.
Yeah, we are here at the lobby of the National Assembly. We are awaiting the entrance of the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, and the Speaker, House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, on this first day of plenary after the Christmas and New Year break, which they commenced on the 20th of December. Now, before they went on break, the two chambers were working on several bills. For the House of Representatives, they are in some sections of the Constitution, and in my discussion with the Chairman Rules and Business, which is the committee in charge of all bills and motions that are discussed during plenary or in the chamber, he told me that the areas that the National Assembly, and the House of Representatives in particular, the areas that they are going to concentrate on are issues on security, issues on job creation, issues on ensuring that Nigerians ensures that the promises made during campaigns are being fulfilled. Besides that, before they went on break, as I said earlier, the House and the Senate are also working to alter some sections of the Constitution. For the House of Representatives, some of the sections which the Parliament seeks to alter are those that have to do with local government administration, concerning the appointments or election of officers into the local government councils. Another area which to amend is the constitution of the National Security Council. As it is presently, there is no representation of Parliament in the membership of the National Security Council. So the National Assembly is seeking to alter that section to see to that and the Speaker, House of Representatives are included as members of the National Security Council. Another key aspect of the Constitution, which the House of Representatives is working on, is to separate the office of the Attorney General to that of the Minister of Justice. Currently, the Minister of Justice is the Attorney General of the Federation. So what the House is seeking to do is to ensure that we have an office of the Attorney General separate from the office of the Minister of Justice. But as we have also informed you earlier, both the Senate and House of Representatives are going to suspend plenary today so that they would, in line with tradition, give respect to a deceased lawmaker representing Barbara constituency in Jigawa State who died in December. So they are going to reconvene and then suspend plenary. So legislative business will continue tomorrow. Thank you, Studio.
Thank you, Lami. Among all the bills you mentioned, which one do you think will be given priority?
I think majorly, before now, the petroleum industry bill is a bill that is dear to both the executive and members of parliament. This is because the bill is going to ensure that Nigeria rakes in more revenue to take care of the budget, and also it is going to make the business environment more flexible for those in the oil industry. Another bill is the Electoral Act. You know, there are so many discrepancies that have been thrown up during the elections. These areas have to do with replacement of candidates in the case of death, or replacement of candidates in the case of some misnomer that have to do with legal battles during elections. So these are areas that the parliaments have worked on, and they want to see to it that the president assents to it so that all the discrepancies that we have during elections will no longer come up or will be taken care of at our law courts.
We'll expect updates from you as events unfold. Moving on now, Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed says the speculated threat of a possible travel ban on Nigeria will have a negative impact on the socio-economic status of the country. Therefore, if such plans are underway, the United States should have a rethink in the overall generality of Nigerians. The minister made this known to media organizations he visited to kickstart his media engagement in the United Kingdom. Anthony Forson reports.
The minister's media tour of the United Kingdom is to promote and reiterate the successes of the President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration in its second term, as well as address and put in proper context contentious issues back home in Nigeria. In his first outing, Reuters, the British Broadcasting Corporation, and the Financial Times were his first port of call. First was the speculated threat of a travel ban by the United States, which the minister responded to this way.
It's still speculative yet. We are yet to be formally communicated. And when we are communicated, we will be able to respond comprehensively. But meanwhile, made it clear that travel ban, in our view, in the level of government, is probably not well thought out. It's probably based largely on the negative narratives being spread by naysayers. And our advice to the U.S. is that they should have a rethink on the issue, because any designation about travel ban is bound to affect investment and growth in the country.
On the ongoing border drill, the minister was emphatic that Nigeria's neighboring countries must respect the ECOWAS protocol.
Notably, Benin Republic and Niger failed to respect the ECOWAS treaty on transit. And that's like sabotaging the economy of the country. But not only is the economy being sabotaged, even the security of the nation was being threatened, because under the guise of smuggling rice, a lot of small arms and ammunition were being smuggled into the country, and also drugs.
When asked on the state of affairs in the Northeast, Lai Mohammed put the records straight, saying the military alone cannot be used to gauge the successes recorded in dealing with insurgency.
When you want to really measure the success of this government in fighting Boko Haram, you must look at it from the viewpoint of not just military success, but also economic success and political success. And then I reminded them that they should remember that we are fighting an insurgency. An insurgency is actually when you are fighting a war amongst your own people. And the tactics for insurgency is quite different from the tactics for conventional war. I also explained to them that when you look at what the situation was in 2014, 2015, the situation is today. Clearly, Nigeria has won the war on all fronts.
While in the United Kingdom, the minister, apart from engaging the media, he will also engage with think tanks and patriotic interest groups. In London, Anthony Forson, NTA News.
We now take a break. Panorama continues shortly.
Chief. Good morning, sir. You are here already?
No, now my spirit there, my body there for house. What kind of question is that? Were you not the one that fixed this meeting for 8 a.m.? You are now coming by 10 a.m. and start asking me jam questions.
But Chief, now, I'm sorry. Don't you also go late for meetings sometimes? You know now, African time.
No more African time. And no more pancaking of face during office hours. At the end of the day, we will lose valuable time. We will not make progress. If we want to move this nation forward and respect time, change begins with me.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry. Can we go for the meeting now, Chief?
Later.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Thanks for staying with us. Since the outbreak of coronavirus in China, there is a growing apprehension in Nigeria that the Ebola episode of 2014 may repeat itself. The federal government, already aware of the dynamics of such deadly disease, has not only put in place detection mechanism at the nation's airports, but heightened medical and health surveillance to timely arrest any ugly incident. Michael Olale interacted with some passengers at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos on these measures.
If you hear there is an epidemic anywhere, you feel worried. But for me, here in the tropics, I have less fear. And being my country too, I know that I have not heard over the news there is one incident in Nigeria, so it makes me feel better.
Although Nigeria is among the countries that have not reported any case of coronavirus, but the Ebola experience of 2014 is still fresh in her memory. Like the case of once bitten, twice shy, the country is sticking with its winning formula. These thermal scanners and infrared at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport were installed in 2014 during the dark days of the Ebola virus. Now they are still in use and upgraded to automatically monitor the temperature of incoming passengers, as high fever is one of the symptoms of coronavirus.
I think the scanners are enough, but also emphasis should be based on countries where we know there are cases of those infections. So passengers from those countries should have extra scrutiny.
When you're looking at the exposure and where people are coming and how busy this place is, I think more practical measures should be taken and put in place as well to check in those more especially coming in.
Nigeria is not envisaging an outbreak, but like an airport of this nature, which recorded more than 96,000 aircraft and 7.3 million passengers in 2019, it is better to be prepared than regret. In Lagos, Michael Olale, NT News.
Joining me live in the studio to talk more on this is a medical practitioner, Dr. Kayode Adeshola. He is the first vice president of the Association of General and Private Medical Practitioners of Nigeria. You're welcome to our studio.
Thank you.
Okay, to begin the conversation, what is the difference between Ebola virus and coronavirus?
Yeah, Ebola virus is today more known to the medical world, like the coronavirus. The coronavirus that we are seeing now, we know had existed mainly in the animals, and the recent outbreak in China that's now spreading all over the world, one is a bit scared because already it's been observed from animal to man and then from man to man. So there's also possibility of man-to-man transmission. The Ebola days, just like this one too, very aggressive, and I don't even know if this one will not be more aggressive than Ebola, because if we look at the survival rates of those that have been hit by this so far, more deaths have been recorded than survivors.
So can you explain to us what really this coronavirus is and how it can be contracted?
Yes, coronavirus, the viruses, they are of different types, and they, like I said earlier, they exist mainly in the animals. But sometimes there could be animal to human transfer, and then from there we are now even having confirmed cases of human to human. That's after picking it from animals. You can remember that in the Wuhan situation, many of them, more than 66% of the patients that were put on admission were traced to have had contacts with the seafood and animal market. Even though the very first case that was seen on the 1st of December 2019, actually there was no link with that market, but we see that a larger proportion had contacts with that particular, seafood market. So where it is coming from, for now, knowledge gap is still a bit wide, but every day the WHO and the China Health Institute and other places are already making breakthroughs, trying to get more and more information. But for now, the mode of transmission, yes, we are beginning to observe that being clear. The source of this, but the origin, is really through the animals, or is it from human or from the environment? We cannot for now see for sure, but we are seeing a pattern from animals to human and from human to human. Those two modes of transmission are very possible. And what is being suspected, because most of the people affected are coming down with more or less like what looks like the upper respiratory tract infection, signs and symptoms that we've seen in the past. People having cough, fever, then sneezing and things like that. And then some of them even come down with body pains and weaknesses, But in a later stage, you could also have some of them having things as headache, begin to form sputum. Sputum is what you bring out when you cough. It doesn't normally come in this particular case at the early phase. But this one's come onto it and then gets to the issue of not being able to breathe well, difficulty in breathing. Most of the cases that have been seen and closely observed by scientists in China, they found out that most of them started having this difficulty in breathing from the 8th day after they had been, confirmed to have the coronavirus infection. It's like it's something that's still unfolding. As things are coming up, we are getting more and more information. The institute in Canada, because Canada too has recorded their own first 2 cases. The institutes have gone into town and they are working. As at yesterday, there was a release from Canada that dry throat can also, be a kind of a risk factor. If your throat is dry, you feel thirsty. What is being advocated now is people should take sips of water. You don't take a gallon at once, just to wet the throat, because it's been observed that within 10 minutes, if the throat is dry, that the organism can get into the body and begin to cause all those problems. Coronaviruses that were known before now, over the last 2 decades, over 20 years, there's one of them that was known as the Middle East respiratory, virus. And then the other one that causes the severe acute respiratory disease too. These two have been there for over 20 years. For over these 20 years, at least 10,000 people will have been affected. And out of this, the one that causes the severe acute respiratory syndrome has actually taken as many as 10% of those that were affected. And those deadly disease. And like I said earlier, I wouldn't know if it's not more deadly than the Ebola virus.
Okay, you listened to the report. From the perspective of the passenger in that report, do you think the thermal scanner is enough to check the presence of that virus in human beings?
Well, for now, with what I said earlier on, that there's still some knowledge here. But for what is known, yeah, I think the government is on the right track. We have reactivated all those facilities that were used to, counter Ebola virus in 2014. And what one of those passengers said is like more should be, added to this. And then government should go, very aggressively on enlightenment. People should be made to know. And if there are people that are coming, because a lot of our citizens they travel to China every now and then. There's a lot of business relationship with China. Those that were already there before this started, every one of them coming in will have to be screened. The level of surveillance should be very high. And this is not, I must sound a note of warning, this is not a time for you to say this one is a big man, or you look the other side, or you take bribe and let somebody come in. Because this is a disease that does not know no boundaries at all. And the way it's already ravaging in those countries that already have them, it is really actually scary. It's very fearful. So all of us must cooperate. Government must enlighten the people and let us know if somebody is coming from an area that's already affected. Submit yourself for screening and surveillance. And if there are signs that put you in position of endangering all of us in Nigeria, then we, the medical personnel, we all know what to do.
Okay, now talking about health workers at various ports. What would you advise them to do to facilitate what is needed to check travelers?
Yes, the health workers, yes, you are talking about those at the port of entry, they are more endangered. But I think it cuts across with all the health workers. It's really a period that we are all endangered in this country today. And I want to beg those that are at the port of entry should up their game. This is not time to be snobbish. There's nothing like a Nigerian factor here. All of us must be on our toes. It's better not to have this than to have it and start, countering or battling it. It is the best time to adhere to that great saying. Prevention, we say, is better than cure. And when they are able to do their bits there, if there are one or two sneaking into the country, then other health workers should also be on alert. The general standard of precaution among all health workers this time around must be upped from at every facility. And then I'm also going to appeal to the government that the PPE, the personal protective equipment, they are not yet readily available. They should be made to flood every medical facility. These are some of those things that at times we expect the government to come out. If you cannot give free, let it be very highly subsidized. Because when you admit a patient with this kind of disease, you have to be changing your wares from time to time. Some people even want to be scared. Not even a time now when we don't have enough of the medical personnel. A lot of them have eloped out of this country. So the earlier the government is, upped its game, the better for all of us. This is not a disease that knows class or any special group of people can attack anybody.
Okay, doctor, before you go, we know that HIV/AIDS is contracted through unprotected sex. Is it the same with coronavirus?
Wow. HIV/AIDS can be contracted through sexual intercourse, but that is not the only route. It can also be, of course, the more popular one we talk about, exchange of body fluid. Could be blood, could be somebody has used a sharp object and another person innocently gets pricked. So it's not only through sexual. But then we are talking even when there are mistakes in wrong transfusion, or transfuse an infected blood into an innocent person, or even mother to child during birth. So there are a lot of ways through HIV is. But the better knowledge we have with HIV today has made us to be bold, to be able to tell the world that yes, we know what to do when it is HIV today. But in this particular case, we are not yet well equipped in terms of the mode of transmission. I mean, how does it come by? Is it through the blood? But what we are knowing is that through droplets, through cough. That's why we are appealing to people. If you are somewhere where somebody is coughing and it's not covering his or her mouth or sneezing, then you do that for yourself. Protect yourself.
Okay, now, finally and briefly, what led to the resurgence of Lassa fever?
Well, Lassa fever, we've been seeing this resurgence in the recent years, in the months of November into May. One of those things when we have all this bush bunny and most of these rats are chased away from their normal places of abode. And so they move towards the home. They want to move to a place safer. And some of them carry this Lassa fever virus in their system. So innocently they jump over things, they climb, and the feces rub on those things, the urine rub on those things, or they bite some food items that are left open, and then the food gets contaminated. And anybody that comes into contact with any of these things becomes infected with the Lassa fever virus.
All right, thank you, Dr. Kayode Adeshola, for coming on the program.
You're welcome.
Now to sports update.
The basketball family around the world was sworn